Howdy. I think that's an appropriate thing to say when we're doing something from the Wild West. Well, I have finally done it. Seriously, this has been a dream of mine since I was 10 years old. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm JCK, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. And this channel, Quantum Truths JCK, did not start out like this. I have been doing many different topics now, so diverse, but essentially all of my topics are about, I guess, a new way of living or a new way of thinking in an old way, and really taking charge of your life and being sovereign in every way you can. A lot of people think it's just about remote viewing and astral journeys and psychic predictions, but it's not. I've got a variety of things. Now, this is something that I have wanted to do since I was probably 10 years old. Why? Because I remember when I was 10, and we're talking about the 80s here, and there was Encyclopedia Britannicas, okay? So we had encyclopedia, we didn't have the internet, Encyclopedia Britannicas, and when I'd sit there and I'd teach myself all this stuff, and I remember there was these books that came with the Encyclopedia Britannicas, and there was this huge chapters on this boy and his life as a Native American, and he was in this tribe, and he went on a vision quest, and he did all this stuff, and then he pulled out his little satchel and he ate some pemmican. And I was like, what is this pemmican? And I remember the description of it, and I was so fascinated with this book and pemmican, and I thought, oh, that kind of sounds kind of gross, but yeah, wow, that's kind of cool. And it was just always in the back of my mind, pemmican. And so this video comes with a warning. If you are a vegan or vegetarian, or you don't like meat, maybe don't watch, because it's going to trigger you, and I tend to do that with a lot of people. But anyway, so what is pemmican? Pemmican, I have mentioned it in several videos before. I did a video, which I can't remember the number of, but I will get back to you about it. There was a video about survival, I think it was back in July last year, in 2021. And I did a video about survival foods and what to have in your pantry, so that if there's food shortages, what to do. And this is the same kind of thing. But this was stuff that they did in the 1800s. There was particular tribes they'd kill buffalo, and then they'd basically skin the buffalo and completely use the meat. They'd dry it out, dehydrate this meat until they could pulverize it with some rocks, and they'd just sit there and they'd pulverize it into a powder, and then they'd get the fat, the suet from the kidneys of the buffalo, and they'd render that down, and they'd basically get the dry buffalo meat. Buffalo? Yeah, buffalo. And they'd get that really dry buffalo meat and mix it with the rendered fat, and they'd put a little bit of berries in it, very dried berries, okay? And they'd make this forever food. So this was like this ultimate survival food, and it would have everything in it, okay? And people would eat that out, and it would survive. It would be preserved as long as you didn't get any water in it. But they would wrap it up, and they would keep it for days. Now, this has kind of had a revival, and I remember in my carnivore circles, when I used to belong to Zeroing In on Health before I was banned from Facebook, we talked about pemmican and making pemmican and things like that, and there was a lot of prominent carnivore people who would do that. Now, if you're a strict carnivore, you will not add berries to this thing. I will explain it a bit more. And some people even add honey to it, and they add spices and salt and things like that. And that's what we'll definitely add salt. We'll be definitely adding salt. But I've worked out how to do it without grossing myself out, because it requires, if we were to do it properly, we would have to boil up this beef and then render the fat and then cut it down and then dehydrate it until it was so dry it was like dust, and then you'd have to get the fat and you'd have to render that down, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to show you a quick way of doing it. And as I said, if you're a vegan, look away now and don't get triggered. because there are some of us who wear masks and some of us don't wear masks. And there's some of us who take the jab and some of us don't take the jab. Some of us eat meat and some of us don't eat meat. Okay, so don't get triggered. Everybody's, you know, we're all cool. We're all cool. Okay, so I'm going to show you what to do, how to start. So let me explain kind of what I'm doing, because why am I doing this? Okay, so I have been water fasting off and on, and you know what? I think it's one of the things that keeps me very healthy. I'm definitely very healthy on the inside. I'm probably the only person in my family who is not on pharmaceutical medication. I'm, 45 years old, 46 years old, not on any pharmaceuticals. I'm doing pretty good in the Western world. However, I would like to, lose some pounds and get even healthier. And I had this vision in a meditation that I was going to do some extended water fasting, refeed, extended water fasting, and then take the Life Force Elixir at high doses, which if you don't know about the Life Force Elixir, I'll put the link below, which is a pretty amazing repairing technology in a form of a beverage. And I was going to take that along with the fasting. And then I thought, when I refeed, I'm going to go really austere and I'm going to eat pemmican. Why do that? Why not just have fresh meat? Well, I could, but you see, when I have all this food around, I'm like, oh, I want to eat it. And if I just have this thing that's there and it's made and it doesn't go off, then that's pretty cool, right? It's like a ready meal, ready-made, but it's preserved. Hard to explain. The other thing, I thought it would be pretty cool just to show you guys, but I had a thought. We've got all these convoys of trucks out there, and they're going to go and eat the food from 7-Eleven or wherever they get, and people are trying to get food to them. I'm like, if you made pemmican, right? Pemmican. If you made this, they'd have it. It's there. Most of them would eat meat, and maybe it's their survival food, and they could stand out there for ages and not get worried, or you don't have to worry about it going off, and they'd have their fuel. This is like an ultimate fuel. So I'm going to show you some of the ingredients, but anyway, that's the stuff that I'm doing, and that's why I thought this is the time to show you how to make it. I had some of the ingredients since July, but the tallow that I need, it only just arrived. So I'm finally going to be able to do this for you and show you how to make it, okay? I'm sure you're sick of seeing my big old head, and I'm in a weird mood, so this might be funny, maybe. So let's show you some of the ingredients. Okay, so I had this idea for quite some time that I wanted to make this, but I wanted to do it easy, all right? So I thought, why not make pemmican with freeze-dried beef? So instead of having to dehydrate this and get a dehydrator and all of that stuff, I could just get this freeze-dried beef, which I will show you. This is just I think it's topside, and it's all it's in these little pellets, and it's freeze-dried. And that there, usually when you go camping, you just chuck a bit of the freeze-dried beef into a soup, and you've got some meat. But that's going to be the meat, the dried meat component, okay, because we've got the dried meat, and then you're going to add some berries. So I got some freeze-dried blueberries. That's typically what they would use. It would be wild blueberries in the pemmican, and we're going to pulverize this. And I'm going to share the recipe on what to do. But then we need something to combine them both, and I'm going to show you what that is. Okay, prepare to be grossed out, but if you're a meat eater, won't gross you out. Okay, so this is beef tallow. So this is a grass-fed, pure grass-fed suet dripping. What's suet? Suet is the fat that's around the kidneys of the animal, and they render it down and it becomes tallow. And a lot of soaps are made with tallow, and I guess I'm not quite sure why they use tallow or beef tallow, but this is maybe because it dries, it solidifies. It is rock hard when it's at room temperature, so we will melt that down, and that's going to be the thing that binds the dried meat. So essentially you've got, it has to be dry, no water at all. You can't put Worcestershire sauce in this, you can't put ketchup, you can't put anything. It needs to be dry, no water. So it's just dry and fat, dry and fat. No moisture, no wetness. So like a bad night at a brothel, right? It's just dry and fat. Okay? So I got interrupted by my offspring. Now, I don't remember what I was up to. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to reconstitute meat in a way that it won't be destroyed and it will last a long time. So how do you do that? You completely dry every bit of moisture out of the product, and then you can't dry fat out, right? So the fat is a separate thing. So we get the lean beef or whatever animal product you want to use. A lot of people use wild meat, like venison or something, and dry it out and pulverize that, and then get the rendered fat, no moisture in it, just the fat, and put that back together so you have a complete protein fat thing. Okay, the berries, I suspect, are because preserved meats and dehydrated meats do not contain vitamin C. The only reason why sailors got scurvy is because they had salted pork. They didn't have fresh meat on the ships. So if you are a pure carnivore, you don't need vitamin C. You don't need like fruit and things like that to get vitamin C. You already have enough in your diet. I know that sounds weird, but as long as you're eating fresh meat. But because this is preserved, I'm assuming that the berries don't just add flavor, they're adding a vitamin C component. Even before they knew what vitamin C was, I suspect that they knew that they had to do that. I don't know when the first pemmican was invented or how long they've been doing this for, but it's just let's just say it was old, and there was a huge business with this. Huge. So this was a huge business for in the Wild West, let's just say. Okay, so there was a lot of buffaloes were killed as a result of this, of the pemmican trade. It was the staple food when you were out exploring, when they were exploring the Wild West, when they were heading west. And they really did quite a number on those buffalo. Okay, and I don't mean to laugh, but that's what happened. So you can look that up. You can look up that history. But let's get to it. Let's just get to it. So this is a forever food, what would be known as like a forever food. Now, obviously, it's not going to last forever, but it's going to last decades if it's preserved correctly, as long as the moisture doesn't get in there. So I'm going to show you how much to make. When you have a dried meat product, whether you dehydrate it yourself, you can't use beef jerky. Beef jerky's got too much moisture in it. It's got other things in it like sugar and all sorts of stuff. You've got to have very, very dry, dehydrated beef that you could almost press together with your fingers and crush it. I will share a link from Prepsteaders, and she shows you how to do it from scratch with the meat and all of that. And she's got some great videos. So I will show you how to do pemmican from scratch. But this is the cheats way of doing it. Okay, and I'm going to give you all the recipe and all of that stuff. So freeze-dried beef or any kind of dehydrated beef is essentially the weight of it is equivalent to 5 times what it would be if it was fresh with the fluid in it. Okay, so this is 500 grams of dehydrated beef. It's equivalent to 2.5 kilograms of fresh meat. Okay, the ratio that we're going to use is 6 parts dehydrated beef or meat to 1 part tallow. Okay, and here's the tallow. Did I show you the tallow? I didn't show you the tallow yet. I'm going to show you some tallow. So this is the grass-fed beef tallow that I got. It took me a while to order it. I don't know why I just kept tossing and turning about it, and then I finally did it, and it finally arrived. So the tallow comes from the suet which is the fat from around the kidneys. Suet was a very popular thing. They would often use them in puddings and things like that. They still do today. Christmas pudding, they'll use suet. But tallow you can make soap with. I think I already spoke about this. Anyway, it's very hard and solid at room temperature. I do have a recipe for, which I'll share in the notes, a chicken version. No, I'm not sure if I want to do that, but it's chicken. And I do have dehydrated chicken here. I don't know why I bought it, but I did. Freeze-dried chicken. And this is a coconut chicken version. This is not true pemmican, but you know, it's kind of an interesting thing to try. But it's the dehydrated chicken, coconut oil, and then some spices. So it's like a coconut curry type version of it, okay? Let's stick to the traditional one. You're going to need some berries, I suppose, if you want to add berries. And these are going to be pulverized as well. These are freeze-dried. You can crush them in your fingers and it will turn to dust. And we're going to need some salt. So it's kind of ironic that there's cupcakes on this, but anyway, there's some salt I've got. And you're going to need some measuring utensils. You could add honey to this. I'm not going to add honey to this one. Let's keep it kind of simple. You could add spices, but sometimes you can go a bit too over the top with the spices and then it'll turn off. It'll make the whole batch off. Not that I've ever tried this before, so this is my first go. Right, let's pulverize some meat. Let's beat our meat. I am committing the ultimate form of vegan blasphemy by using my Vitamix to pulverize meat. Yes, I am doing that. I'm sorry, vegans. If you're still watching and you're a vegan, I don't know why you're watching. So, thank you. Goodbye. This is what the beef looks like. It's pretty funky. You can see, so let's try and grab some. It's really, really dry. I could crush that with my finger and you can see the dust that it creates. That's how dry you want to do it. So if you do end up making your own, this is how dry you need it to be. There needs to be absolutely no moisture in it. And when you do dehydrate any kinds of meat, usually they'll take off all the fat so that it doesn't go rancid. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to do that now in there. And then we'll work out the quantity that we have with our measuring devices, okay? Wow, look at that meat dust. So I've basically ground that up in my Vitamix. Now, if you've got a food processor that will do this, then use a food processor. This is difficult to get off with one hand, but I will show you. So you can see that I've made some dust there. I'm going to grind up some more and get it all into the bowl, and then we'll do the berries. So this is what it looks like. This is the pulverized beef. This is the freeze-dried beef, and I've just pulverized that. And make sure all your utensils are absolutely bone dry, okay? I'm going to now do the berries. I'm not quite sure how much. I mean, this amount right here is about half of that bag, 250 grams of the freeze-dried beef, which would make basically 5 times, so 5 times what, 125 grams of freeze-dried beef. I'm pretty sure that's 250 grams. Sorry, this is 250 grams of freeze-dried beef, but we're not going to do it by weight. We're going to do it by volume, okay? So we'll measure out cups of this. We'll get 6 portions of whatever beef I've got here, and then we'll measure that same portion of, so 1 portion of fat. But anyway, I'll explain it all in the recipe. Let's pulverize some berries. So the recipe doesn't say how much berries to use, but I just want to show you what they look like. This is the 3rd packet of, like, this is 15 grams per packet, but look at the berries. I mean, that's freeze dried. You can still see the moisture in it, but you can also see just how easily they crush into dust, okay? So we want to pulverize that too, but we don't want to put too much berries in there, just a small portion, I suppose. So I think 3 packets will be enough. So I've made the berries a little bit more coarser than the meat because I do want a little bit of, I don't want them to be completely pulverized. They're a little bit chunkier, so there'll be little bits of berries in there. That's pretty cool. I'm going to mix it all together now. Okay, so back to my face. I did add a bit more berries to my mix. Can you see my mixy mix? Just because apparently in the recipe they said 2 parts meat to 1 part berries. That's a lot of berries. So I did add a little bit more, but I would say that it was more like a 1:4 ratio of berries to meat. That I think that's how much I've done. Now, what we're going to do is, now I need to imagine that this, okay, so this recipe says to add 1 teaspoon of salt to every pound of meat. Now we've got to imagine this as reconstituted meat. Now I did the calculations, and this amount of the dried freeze-dried beef that I had was equivalent to 1.25 kilograms of meat, which is 2 3/4 pounds. Okay, so we're looking at about 3 teaspoons of salt. I'm going to add 3 teaspoons because I don't want it to be unsalty. Now apparently this doesn't taste great, all right, and there's a reason why, because it's a survival food and you don't want it to be so delicious that you're just going to keep tucking into it. It's a survival food, and so maybe there's some genius in that. Okay, so let's add some salt to this. Now once I've done this, I'm going to add 3 teaspoons of salt. Sorry if there's any mess on the counter. There's 1. I have a feeling that that looks like a lot of salt. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Do I dare add another? Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I might just add 1, mix it up, taste it dry. If that's correct, I'll add another. Okay, so I suspect... Okay, let's just do it that way. I'm worried about adding too much salt because we can't unsalt it. We can't assault it. Unsalt it? Yes. All right, let me try this. This is going to be gross. I'm going to cry. I think it's going to taste pretty gross. Maybe when the fat's added, it's better. Okay. This could be the best thing I've ever done, or it could be a complete disaster. I've just added another teaspoon of salt. Oh, good Lord. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to mix it up. Mixy mix. I don't know what makes meat taste good, but when it's freeze-dried, it's... Yeah. All right, let's try it. God, okay, here we go. Let's try a little bit. It's okay. It's all right. It's good. I think that's enough salt. That's enough salt. 2 teaspoons was enough. Maybe I got the calculations wrong. Okay, I think that's okay. It's good as it is. Now we're going to add this. And the ratio is 6 parts of the freeze-dried beef mixture to 1 part of this. So I don't think it's going to be very much, but it's enough to bind it. So we're going to add it slowly, and let's just see how we go. I'm going to calculate this, divide it into 6 and work out what 1 part is, and once I work out what 1 part is, I'll use 1 part of the suet. Okay, so the amount has totaled 4.5 cups. I've got 6 little mounds that I worked out, and 1 portion is 3/4 of a cup. Okay, so I've got a 1/2 cup and a 1/4 cup. So 1 portion of suet will be 3/4 of a cup. And I'm going to mix that in, and I suspect it might be a good idea for me to put some honey in this. Decisions. Okay, we're melting the fat component. You can't use butter, you can't use ghee, you can't use duck fat. Okay, so I've got some duck fat here. See how liquidy it is? Can't use that. I believe you can't use lard, so you can't use pork fat. There's a reason for all of that. This is melting fairly slowly. I've got it on a medium heat. Don't judge the metal. Don't sit there. Why are you cooking in metal? Like, just calm down. Okay, with all of that. I'm got rendered fat and freeze dried meat, and you know, this is an experiment. You don't have to eat it. You don't even have to condone it. This is just something to explain to you that there are old things that that as humans we discovered and we created that are for survival. Okay, and this is the ultimate survival food apparently. And I think it's kind of fun to experiment and sort of learn these things. And you know, sometimes just simplifying your life and going back to that. It is, look, if you're trekking out if you do bushwalking or hiking or anything like that, this would be something to carry if you can store it properly in some grease-proof paper or wax paper, and just seal it off and make sure there's no moisture getting in there. This will survive. In the recipe, I noticed the one that I'm going to share with you, the link below. It's not my blog, it's somebody else's blog. She did say that, you know, just to be on the safe side, to consume it within 6 to 12 months. It depends on how you're storing it. You don't want moisture getting in there. You don't want humidity. Making sure that it's all sealed up, and there's a way to do it. It's actually not smelling too bad. I really thought it was going to stink me out to high heaven. I have a real sensitive nose, and I don't like bad smells. I really don't. I really hate bad smells. This is why I was thinking maybe I need to put some honey in this to make it not so bleh. But you know, this is an experiment. People are probably going, why are you doing this, JC, if you're thinking it's gross? Well, you know, the idea is kind of cool. And like I said, I've been wanting to do this since I was 10 years old. Okay, so I'll get back to you once I get this all melted and we'll blend it up. So there's our liquid gold, and we're going to mix this into our dry mixture, which is over here. Okay, so here's our moment of truth. I'm going to blend in, ignore the stuff in the background, blending in, yikes, and we're going to mix it up. Whoa. Listen to that. Interesting. Alrighty, so this is looking pretty gross. Just kidding. It looks like brownies. We're making brownies, everybody. Yeah, let's just see how this happens. Now, it looks like there's not much fat, but I suspect that it will come together a bit like when you're making apple crumble or something, but the fat will absorb into this dry mixture. Now, when you are eating this as your survival food, you would want to have a lot of water. You want to make sure that you are hydrating very well, because this is a very dry food. That's definitely something that needs to happen. All right, I'm going to see if I need any more fat in this. I don't think so, and I might add a little bit of honey. Yeah, I might add a little bit of honey to this, but let's just see how we go. I added a drizzle of honey. The honey is the shit. This is the thing that's making it. All right. It's about, actually I added probably about 2 teaspoons of honey in total, maybe a tablespoon of honey. But let's just see. I still think I might need a little bit, because it's not pressing together, so it will need a little bit more fat. But it's kind of this salty sweet thing at the moment, and it's not too bad. I think the honey, the flavor of it, has added something to this pemmican mixture. So I've got to add a bit more tallow. I feel it's got to press together, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you make this, but I will show you once I've mixed this through. Okay, it seems to be the right consistency now. I know it looks like Christmas pudding, but it's not. It most definitely is not. But you can see when I press it, it's sort of holding together. Now we've got to remember that this fat, we don't want too much in there, but it will solidify quite quickly at room temperature. So I've got to get this into this little pan here, tray, and I'll show you what I do next. Not exactly Grasmere gingerbread. I wish it was, right, so we're just pressing. I'm just using a cup, and I'm pressing it down. You could certainly put these into molds and make them like little hockey pucks, and put it in a silicone mold and maybe do little circles of them. You can mound it up. I wouldn't be putting too much fat in this. It would taste very soapy. So I'm just going to quickly show you, after I press it all down, what it looks like. And I think I've got a kind of a good thing going on here. I gotta tell you, the smell, not my cup of tea. But you know, if you're surviving and you're out there and you're hungry, you'd eat this. Absolutely, you would eat it. All right, let me get this sorted and I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so we're just pressing that right down, just like you would a crumble, or not a crumble, but you know, a pastry base, if you were doing something like a cookie base, or a biscuit base. But this is, because of the tallow, that's going to solidify quite hard, and then we're going to cut this up and portion it out and then wrap these up individually. The smell is it's a little bit like dog food, kind of. Not really. Look, I'm not used to this kind of smells. We haven't been brought up with using tallow. We're not used to having game meat or anything like that. But if you are used to that kind of thing, then this would be okay for you. And I guess, like, if this is a survival food, you'd eat it, right? It doesn't look great, but there's reason behind all of this. So let's just get this sorted, and then I'll show you the finished product. Okay, just cutting it up. And you can see, I mean, this hasn't completely cooled down, but it's quite easy to cut. And I'm not going to make huge pieces. I really don't think you need a lot of this. You certainly would not make a meal out of this. Maybe I'll just make them into little bars like that. There we go. And I'm just going to let that cool right down and make sure that no moisture gets in there. And then it will be easy to pull these out and individually wrap them. Well, Pemmy can, Pemmy did. That's my last dad joke of the video. Pemmy can, Pemmy did, Pemmy will. But I'm going to see if I can pull a little piece up and show you what it looks like. Well, I've got a small piece of it, and it's quite crumbly in texture. That will solidify a bit more and come together a little bit easier. Do I want to eat some? No. I'll try a little bit. Okay. It's interesting. All right, I'm gonna have a little bit more. I'll have a good go of it. Okay. I got a little berry in there, and a little bit of, there's something about it where you would go, hmm, 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 hmm. It's not like a snack food. It's not like jerky, right? You're not eating jerky and going, this is great, nice and spicy. It's not that. It's not disgusting. It's just not. It's kind of like an experiment gone wrong, where you eat it because you're hungry. You know, like late one night and you're really hungry and you're stoned or whatever. Not that I've ever been stoned, but I'm imagining. And you kind of mix together two things that shouldn't go together. And then you eat it and you go, but I'm hungry, right? And you just eat. That's what this is, okay? But it's survival food. I'm sure there's ways to zhuzh this up. I'm sure there's ways to make this delightful. The chicken coconut one kind of made me interested. Now that wouldn't be a long lasting thing. Now the biggest thing you're fighting against is the fat going rancid. You don't want that to happen because, you know, that's going to be a whole lot of other trouble. So, and with coconut oil, if you did a coconut oil one, like in this recipe I'm going to share below, yeah, you wouldn't want rancid coconut oil along with the, you know, bad chicken. Okay, but you can get freeze-dried chicken, like I said. So it's already cooked and then they freeze-dry it. Okay, so it's a cooked meat and it's freeze-dried. But if you're going to do it from scratch, you will dehydrate this until it's pulverized. Why would you go to all this trouble? Well, you know, it's something that's a great experiment with your kids. If you're homeschooling your kids, I think that might be an idea. It's good if you're hiking, I suppose. You could amp up some of the parts of this to make it a good hiking food. It's not something you're seeking out, okay? So I think in a pinch, if you were to have this on hand as an emergency food, it's a good thing. But make sure you drink lots of water, and I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to eat it. I think if it was the last thing I had in the house, it would be the last thing I would ever eat. But that's just me, you know, like make it your own, but just follow the rules of no moisture in there. Make sure it's a certain type. Anyway, follow the things that are in this recipe, the proportions and all of that. And I think you're going to have a very nice experiment on your hands. But that's pemmican, and I finally did it. After 35 years of wanting to make it, I finally made it. And like I said, it could have either been the best thing I've ever done in my life or the biggest disaster. I think it's somewhere in between. It's not that bad, but it's not great. But anyway, try it. Enjoy. Vegans, you can laugh at me now. Thank you. Bye-bye.